Happy new month. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Wanda's Warriors Live. Thank you all for tuning in to Wanda's Warriors Live. I pray that this show will be a blessing to each and every one of you. So come on in and like and share this on your page. I'm going to give you everyone a second to come on in. Takes a second to alert everyone that I'm live.
I know how that is.
Yes, you be waiting, you be like, come on.
Come on.
Come on in. Thank you. It's the 8th month, which is new beginnings. The number 8 means new beginnings. And I just want to thank each and every one for tuning in. Come on in. As you're coming in, please put in the comment section on what state and what city and state that you're watching from. And don't forget to share the broadcast. Also, I want to say happy birthday. If you have a birthday in the month of August or whatever you're celebrating, any anniversary, happy birthday, happy anniversary. Also, August is National Black Business Month. So congratulations to all of your Black businesses that are flourishing in this season. And so as you're coming in, I want to read the bio of my very special guest, none other than Jill Morris, who is a nonprofit expert. So I hope that you have your notepads and your pens and your paper ready to take some notes, because it's going to be an educational and a purposeful broadcast. Amen.
Amen.
So Jill's bio reads, Jill Morris is a purposepreneur, and I love that word, with a moral compass. With over 20 years of experience as a public relations practitioner in the public sector, Jill has managed communication projects from every aspect of the nonprofit industry, from grassroots organizations and professional associations to higher education and the federal government. This multifaceted experience has positioned Jill as an expert in cause-related marketing and nonprofit development and management. In her role as principal of the Savvy Servant LLC, Jill coaches thousands of servant leaders who are on a mission to help change community and transform lives. Everybody, let's welcome Jill Morris on the broadcast. Show her some love. Give her some hearts. Tell her welcome in the comment section. Good evening, Rachel. Please put in the comment section on what city and state that you're tuning in from. So welcome, Jill. Welcome.
Thank you, Wanda. Thank you.
It is so good to have you on the broadcast, and you are just an amazing person. You and your family.
Thank you.
I finally got the chance to meet you in person.
Finally.
Yes. Yes. So tell us, who is Jill Morris?
Oh my gosh. I'm a servant at heart. I'm a servant leader. I mean, it's professional, but it's also personal. That's just who I am. I'm a giver. I didn't always want to be a servant, but I am, and that's who I am. I serve from a place of abundance, and I love serving from that place. And if I got it, you got it. That's who I am.
That's exactly what a servant is. Serving is serving others.
Yes,
you
that's
start
right.
by helping others, and when God see that you're helping others with a humble and an open heart, that's how you get elevated to bigger and greater.
Exactly.
So a lot of people, frown upon the word servant, but not servant is grassroots.
The best leaders start as servants, and
yes.
Yeah, if you can't serve, check your leadership role.
Exactly, exactly. So how was the Savvy Servant birth?
Oh wow. So it's I started when I left the federal government. I started my company, Straight Public Relations, J Mars Public Relations, and in that part of my business, I was doing a lot of external public relations for nonprofits. But when I was doing it, I found that a lot of nonprofits, although I can make them look good publicly, the inside was jacked up. Like a lot of their internal infrastructure was just off. And so I saw that there was a need for me to go in and help redevelop nonprofits in the inside. And so I relocated from Maryland to North Carolina. And when I got to North Carolina, I found out somebody had the name J Morris Public. Now they had J Morris Public Relations, and so I had to change the name, and I changed it to the Savvy Servant, which started focusing more on the internal. So that's how it kind of birthed. But it's all, the same company.
Okay, so how did you learn about nonprofits? Because you don't hear about many people. I mean, because you're an expert. I mean, you know the ins and the outs. So how did you come across? Just did it fall in your lap, or was it a passion of yours to birth it, or how did
So
it come
you know
about?
what? It's good. I'm glad you asked, and I'm glad that it's your show, because this is probably something that a lot of people don't know. But I really started to get into the nonprofit industry. It actually went back to free gospel. The
Wow.
Holy Ghost explosion, 1994, the very first one. I worked alongside with Tanya Blake as like her right hand, and we're the ones, along with a big team. We put the whole Holy Ghost explosion on, which ended up being a conference
Wow.
over 20 plus years. But I started to see the internal and how churches in the inside work. And so I had a degree in public relations, but it really didn't hit me that I had this passion for nonprofits until I went to work for the late Honorable Eunice Kennedy Shriver as her special assistant, as her press secretary, and at the Kennedy Foundation. And so she ran the Kennedy Foundation. Down the hall was the Special Olympics. And just
Wow.
watching her as a servant leader in the Kennedy clan as a servant leader, I just took a passion for it.
Wow.
And she was getting ready to retire. And she said, Jill, basically, where do you want to go from here? And she said, let me make a suggestion. She said, you should go into the federal government. And she made one phone call. I got into the federal government. And when I got into the federal government, I had oversight over many grantees, nonprofit grantees. And I said, you
Wow.
know what? Let me go get my master's in nonprofit management. And that's what I did. And that's kind of how it started. But it actually, really, the inception came from free gospel. It really did.
Look
And
at that.
learning the insides and how they manage the money in the inside and how did that, I was really intrigued with that. And so, yeah, that's kind of where it started.
That's a lot. And free
Mm-hmm.
gospel has birthed so
Mm-hmm.
much, so
Yes.
many things.
Yes.
Not
Yep.
just spiritual leaders, but actually your business is
Mm-hmm.
based upon leadership
Yep.
spiritually. Because a
Mm-hmm.
servant, you have to be spiritually, have that heart
You have
to
to.
be a servant.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for taking that on,
Mm-hmm.
that tenacity and that heart to do it and to not do it begrudgingly
Right.
and not
Thank
looking
you.
for
Thank
something
you.
in
Thank
return, because
you.
that's
Thank
something that
you.
is so needed.
Right. Yeah, because at that point it becomes self-serving, and that's what
Yes.
you don't want. Right.
Yeah,
So.
that's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. So who was your first client?
My first client was Girls on the Run, which is a national organization. I was in the federal government, and I was getting ready to resign from my job to start my business full time. And before I left the federal government, I said, okay, let me secure 3 clients pro bono, because I needed to, get my
Mhm.
feet wet. And so somebody had referred Girls on the Run to me. and a nonprofit for their Northern Virginia office. And so I went and I met with them on November 11th. I was leaving. My last day was December 31st from the federal government. And they said, we got this big 5K race on December 10th, and we need some celebrity clients. And I was like, okay, how am I going to do this in 3 weeks? And tomorrow's a holiday. It was Veterans Day like the next day. And something said, reach out to the First Lady, to Michelle Obama. And I reached out and I said, listen, there's a basically my client is doing a 7K race, and we want to see if you would be interested in coming out and running with the girls, because she had her whole Let's Move campaign going on.
Yes.
And it was nothing but the grace of God. I got an email back from her office, and it said that, unfortunately, the First Lady will be traveling for the holidays, but she read the bio of the organization, and she's intrigued, and she wants to send out her Council on Women and Girls. And she sent out her Council on Women and Girls, and it took Girls on the Run to a whole nother level. So the White House came out, and as a result, the event got posted coverage on the White House's website, on their blog. And so that was my very first client. So when I went into business, I didn't have to do any advertising, because I started getting referrals. And people started organizations started to come out back and forth. I had to do no marketing for my company, no public relations. And so yeah, that was my very first official client, I will say. Because a lot of people know that I did public relations for the music industry. So yeah, I did on the side. I did public relations for the music industry, but Girls on the Run was my first official nonprofit client.
That is a blessing. And as you see how God brought people to you, because where God guides, He provides.
He provides.
He provided that list. Now, Jill, you stated that you resigned from the federal government and you started your own business. How did you do that? And was there any, for someone out there who may be thinking the same thing, like, I worked for the government for X amount of years, and it's time for me to take that leap of faith and start my own business. Can you tell us what was going through your mind to do that, and how did you do it? Was there fear, or you was like, I'm just gonna walk by faith?
Of course there was fear. Of course. Yeah. That year I had turned 40 years old. That January, that was 2010, that January, they had, I don't know if you remember, but there was a devastating earthquake in Haiti. And part of my job was to go to wherever we had a program in the federal government where wherever there's a catastrophe in the world, we could bring our U.S. citizens home. We could put them on a plane wherever they are and bring them home for free. But we had to account for those people that were coming back into the country. So I worked for the Department of Health and Human Services. My responsibility was to count the babies that were coming in. Wow. So I was deployed to Miami for 6 weeks. I was deployed to Miami. It was January. That next month, I was turning 40 years old. And as God would have it, I had to spend my 40th birthday in Miami by myself. And I had an epiphany. I was walking down South Beach one morning. It was my morning of my 40th birthday. And I saw these group of Black men sitting, having brunch. And it looked like they were having a meeting. And I said, Dad, one of the guys looked familiar, like so familiar. And I came back up the beach, and it dawned on me, that's Bob Johnson from BET. And I said, I want to be like that. I want to be able to sit on the beach and make deals, on South Beach and make deals. I came home like around the springtime, and I was at work, and I just felt it in my spirit, like something was going to happen that year. And that October, I heard it loud and clear in my spirit. December 31st is going to be your last day. And that was the first time I had ever heard from God. Like, I heard God speak to me.
The audible.
Right. And I was like, ooh, December 31st. I was like, let me go. I looked up. I was sitting in my cubicle. I looked up at the calendar at December 31st. Timing was perfect. December 31st was the end of the week. It was a Friday. It was the end of the year. It was the end of the month. It was the end of a decade.
Wow.
It was the end of the pay period. I said, okay, Lord. All right. I don't know how people going to take that I'm leaving my good government job, but I'm going to do it. Because I had received, at that point, I had received about 3 prophecies that I was going to have a business. I said, okay. So I told 3 people. And one of the people that I told, him and his wife had just left their good government jobs.
Good government job. Yep.
And they said, we got you, Jill, whatever you need. And they developed my website. They were like, we got you. And that's how I did it. I jumped out by faith. Wow. And January 3rd, 2011, I was sitting in my home office, working my business full time.
Look at God.
That's how I did it. Won't he do it? Won't he do it?
And it's like when he tells you to do something, you have to do it.
You have to.
It may not make sense to you or to even other people, but it's not for them to make sense out of it. It's for God. He's the one that told you to do it. So he's going to order your footsteps each and every way. Yeah. But he just needs you to move your feet.
And I'm a faith walker. I'm a risk taker. And I did it. I liquidated my savings and I did it.
Wow.
I did it.
Mm-hmm. So what made you move to North Carolina? Is that where you started your business, or did it start in the Maryland, DC area?
It started in Maryland. And so business was getting real good. And then business started to turn. And it started to turn, which is very important for me to say this, is because I got out of alignment. Once people saw that I can get people on the news and got people on, in the LA Times and Fox 5 and wherever, I started to get a lot of phone calls. And so I started, because in the nonprofit industry, once funding goes, the first thing to go is your marketing. So they can cancel a contract at any time because it's not, funding is not guaranteed for them. And so I started to be less concerned about getting more contracts with nonprofits, because these other individuals, I discovered a whole new type of nonprofit, and that was serving authors. So all these people were coming out with these self-published books. They was contacting me, and I was taking the money and I was handling. I was out of alignment. And slowly but surely, my business started to decline. And in 2013, my business hit rock bottom. And I cried out to God. It was a horrible experience. I cried out to God. And in 2014, I got a phone call. And it was from a young woman who I went to grad school with. She had just taken a job at a $20 million nonprofit in North Carolina. She was going to take a job as the executive director. And she told the board, she said, because it was a horrible situation how she was getting the job. They had ousted the executive director and she was coming in, and she told the board, a 27-member board, she told them, the only way I'll take this job is if I bring a PR person in here to redo the whole thing. And so she called me. I hadn't heard from her in years. She called me and she said, would you be willing to meet, have a meeting with the board? I said, absolutely. Came down to North Carolina and they unanimously agreed to bring me on. And I was commuting back and forth for a long time. Commuting back and forth from Maryland to North Carolina. And my mother's like, you might as well just go ahead and get you a little cheap little apartment. You spending a lot of money in a hotel. And I did. And I took her advice. And then one day I said, why am I going back? The only thing that was holding me up was that I had bought my home and it was still in Maryland. And they were like, you could rent that out. And that's what I did. And I relocated to North Carolina.
Wow. Look at God. And you truly fit when the scripture talks about your gift will make room for you.
Yes.
your gift of helping others and for someone to remember you. And for that
Yes.
to be her only condition for her employment was that she bring you on, 27 member board. They could have told her, well, we don't know Jill Morris. No,
They
but
didn't.
your gift
Hmm.
made room for you. And God, that's divine favor. God
Divine
opened
favor.
that way for you to have that
Hmm.
job. And
Yep.
that's just a blessing.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
truly a blessing. So,
Hmm.
Jill, for someone who's watching and they're thinking about starting just a business per se, how would they know whether to start a nonprofit versus an LLC?
Um, it would depend on the audience, of course, the product or the service, but it would depend on the target audience you're serving. If you're serving, an audience that is low income, you probably want to do it as a nonprofit.
Mhm.
But it's just a personal decision. It's just a personal choice.
Okay. Because we have a lot of business people that are watching. And so I know
Hmm.
they want to
But
know, like, what's the best way?
however, I teach my clients every for-profit should have a nonprofit arm, and every nonprofit should have a for-profit arm. So, it just at some point you should have both. And I know it's that's a loaded response, but yeah, um, yeah. So for instance, like if you are in a professional field, like say if you are a counselor or a life coach, I would say, hello, hi, Shantae. I would
Hello,
say,
Pastor Shantae.
oh, Pastor. Now I'm sorry, Pastor
Yes.
Shantae. I'm sorry. Hey, how are you? I would say, so if you're offering a professional service, I would say personally, I would do that as a for-profit. But you might want to have some type of sliding scale where you offer like at a lower price point for
Okay.
low income
Mhm.
families or individuals.
Okay. And on your you do live streams on Instagram and Facebook. Tell us about that for people who are watching and what they entail.
Oh gosh. So I started doing lives because again, I'm a servant and I will pour out information. And if you really want to, you really want me to hold your hand, of course, that I do that as a business. But I started doing lives on Instagram years ago. Instagram, so that you all know, Instagram is the number one platform to build a brand. And so if you're building your business, especially a for-profit business, you need to be on Instagram, as well as LinkedIn. But Instagram is a money maker. You can make a lot of money on Instagram. So I started doing lives on Instagram a couple of years ago. I started doing them in the morning. So I would come on every morning, between 7:30 and 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yes.
And I would just drop nuggets. I would just drop nuggets. And so yeah, I would teach you everything from, you know, how to start the nonprofit to what systems you need. And so, but here of lately in the last year, because I'm a numbers person, I did my analytics. The numbers weren't as profitable now as they were then. So I kind of changed things up. And now I do all of my lives in my private Facebook group, which is no cost. But
Yeah.
those people, I teach how to build communities, but those people are like targeted, like they are either building a nonprofit or have nonprofits. So yeah, so yep, so that's what I do on Instagram.
That's good information to know because a lot of people they'll either do, their a live stream from Facebook or YouTube. And I know for me personally, I do very few lives on Instagram. It's like you just kind of shy away from Instagram. but but that's some good information that you put
Mm-hmm.
out there.
Yeah,
So
you
you
got to know
all,
your audience. Yeah, know
yes.
your audience because you could be wasting. For me, um, Facebook didn't work for me. It
Wow.
just didn't. I just didn't have any followers. Instagram, I got 8,000. Facebook, the numbers, they don't work for me. So yeah, you need to find where your tribe is, and you need to, wherever that is, I say focus on one platform and build that one platform.
Okay. Okay. Now, Jill, on your website, I want you to give your website address, but on your website, you offer so many courses.
Mm-hmm.
And for anybody that wants to start a nonprofit organization, or you want the tools, there is no excuse. Jill is an expert, and her website and what she has on there is a wealth of knowledge. So can you give us that information?
Sure. So my website is www.thesavvyservant.com. What my website does not tell you is kind of, I have, of course, I offer courses and services and products, but as far as developing or starting a nonprofit, the very first thing before even going into my products and services or even contacting me, because I do offer initial consultations for at no cost. Before doing that, I think people need to understand that you have to, not have to, but I advise that you have had an experience, whether it's personal, professional, whether it's good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. Have an experience where you have come to the point of maturity or maturation where you have that place to serve from. So if you're not mature to serve, then don't. So for instance, like in your situation, Wanda, where you're a breast cancer survivor, and so it would be now a good time for you to start a nonprofit focusing on giving services to those who are going through breast cancer, because you are now you're overcomer. And so so yes, I would first say really accept that place, that experience, and serve from that place, because a lot of people are starting nonprofits and they are serving from an empty
Greed.
place. Yep.
Yeah.
And there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it's not always about the money, because the money may not always come right away. You may be just constantly coming out your pocket
Right.
first
Right.
before you start getting grants. So can you
Mm-hmm.
expound on that? That as soon
Yes.
as you start a nonprofit, you're not going to be a millionaire the next month.
Right. So that's a great point. So the biggest misconception is that you cannot make money in a nonprofit. So that is a lie. You can. But if you are going into a nonprofit to make money, you're totally off. Go on ahead and start that for profit. There are many ways that you can make money as the founder of the nonprofit, which is a whole nother discussion. But as far as going into looking at the dollar signs, when you first start that nonprofit, you have to make that first initial investment. Like, you will have to self-fund. And you got to have your systems in place and your organizational structure in place, so that you can be at a point where you can rely on your board to provide some funding. And so yeah, if it's you got dollar signs, this is not the entity for you.
Yeah. And a lot of times, I'm glad that you mentioned the board there. And can you tell us the importance of having a board? Because, I've heard of different, nonprofit organizations, and the board was not solid. So you hear of like dysfunction within the board, or people leaving, mishandling of funds, and different things. Can you tell us the importance of how you should pick your board, and the
Mhm.
function, what the board should be about?
Right. So the first thing, when developing your organizational structure, you got to reset your mind. Because if you're also going to, aside from, looking at the dollar signs, if you're going into building this nonprofit as like a solo mentality, or as a solopreneur, or this is me, myself, and I, and it's all about me, and this is my baby, you're also off. And so you got to look at your board. First of all, the IRS requires that you have a board. And so, and it's funny, when I, teach my courses, I can tell. We talk about board development in session 2. It's 4 sessions. Session 2, we talk about board development. I can tell from session 2 who is going to continue to session 4
Wow.
and who is going to really, start a nonprofit because of their attitude and response about a board. So if you got to change your mindset, and you got to look at a board as I look at them as your big sisters or your big brothers, like they got your back. If you look at it like they're going to tell me no, or they're going to oust me, if you look at it from a negative point of view, then you are setting yourself up for failure. So as a result, a lot of founders will pick their own board members, family members, which is a no-no, or pick people who they can control, which makes them have to do all the work, because the board's responsibility, one, is to fundraise. Two, to get that initial funding up. Two, their responsibility is to write your policies for your organization. So if you don't have a board, you're going to be stuck with, if you don't have a reliable board, you're going to be stuck with doing all the work. But a lot of people think, well, this is the way I can get around it. A lot of founders, they serve on both sides, which is a total violation, on the board side as well as the organization side. Like, you really about to mess yourself up. And so having a board is extremely important. As a matter of fact, one of my clients, I talk about them all the time, Lean on Us Unity, their initial board meeting, they were very strategic on who they picked. And one of their board members on their first meeting wrote them a 5-figure check. So you gotta be real strategic. Don't, just, get people who gonna have your back, who can go in their Rolodex and, and say, listen, I just started serving on this board and I need a donation. So you need some really good, solid people on your board. And because you got to have a board.
Yeah, that's good. And one thing I like several times throughout the year, on Instagram, you will promote another business. And I love that, how you promote others, and that helps build up their clientele, and, for people to know about different things that they do. And also for the month of February, you have a cause that is near and dear to you, and you wear a specific color. So can you tell us about that?
So, well, first of all, December is the month that I do the 12 days of Christmas, and I will feature, someone who has impacted me that year. And so that's my way of giving back. And, that whether they, spent up a lot of money in my business, whether they had a powerful story, whatever it is, like I have this phrase called Biz Sis. Like I had a couple of my business up there to talk about their business. So that's what I do in December. February is my birthday month, but it's also Valentine's Day, and it's also Heart Health Month. And several of my family members has suffered from heart disease. And so so the whole month of February, I wear red the entire month. I light up my Instagram with red. All my posts are red. And that's not even my favorite color, but everything goes red. And I focus more on the emotional and spiritual part of the heart, not so much the physical part of the heart, but it's the emotional part that kind of takes us down. And so so that's my cause, Heart Health Month. February.
I love that. I love that. And I love how you said you focus on the spiritual part, because all of that connects.
All of it.
To have a successful business, it all connects back to God, to the foundation. And it all actually connects back to your heart. Because if your heart isn't right and going in the business, then the business isn't going to flourish.
Exactly. It's all about that heart.
So what advice could you give to someone who maybe have started a nonprofit and they just kind of feel stuck?
Normally, if your nonprofit is stuck, is because you're in the way. And it's because so I had somebody come to me and they said, I done been through 4, nonprofit coaches and none of them can help me. And so we started the sessions, and the very part that nobody wants to do, they don't want to form a board. They don't want to have the board meeting. I'm like, okay, if you're not going to do what I'm advising you to do, you're going to stay stuck. A lot of times people also are stuck is because, again, they're serving from a place that that's not their lane. It's not their sweet spot. So there's so many women who want to do women's empowerment. They want to rah the women, but it's like you're still broken in that area. Like, go somewhere and sit down somewhere. Like, go somewhere and get you some healing. Go get some therapy. Then come back. So a lot of it, because having a nonprofit, it will test your patience. It will make you broke. It could make you broke. Somewhere you're going to fail in it. And if you can't sustain the fall, you're going to stay down. And so you got to have more compassion. You got to have something more pulling you than the pretty parts of having a nonprofit. So so that's the stuck part. And the other stuck part is that, a lot of people, they want to do, the program part. Yeah, I can, I'm going to have, I'm going to do this financial literacy part, and I got, and I'm holding classes, but the business part is jacked up. They don't have their organization, the business part, the leadership upright, and policies in place and systems in place. And so so it's a lot of reasons why people are stuck, but mainly it's usually them that's in the way. They don't want to surrender.
And there's a lot that you have to keep up with, with a nonprofit and, an LLC. Like, you have to pay, your taxes, every year, when that comes around, and it's like
quarterly.
Quarterly. Pay, and it's like, you're like, man, I'm always giving out and giving out, and you have to remember that stuff.
And nonprofits, you got to file an annual report every year. You got to do a 990. You got to, you got to make sure you're in compliance. You got to, you got to have your board meetings. You got to, so that's the boring parts. That's the part nobody want to do. Yeah.
And like you said, you got to come out your pocket a lot. You're just not going to start a nonprofit on September the 1st, and by October 1st, you're going to be a multi-millionaire.
But that's what business, period. Like, you're going to come out of, I started my business, I started my business, a for-profit business. I started my business, I had $60,000 in savings. I started my business, and it cost. It's so many expenses. It costs, for the first 2 months, I didn't collect a paycheck. So, it costs to get out there. You got to buy systems, for nonprofits. You got to have case management system. You got to have, a grants management system. You got, it costs.
Software, technology, all of that. It costs. Yeah. So for anyone that's watching or that will be on the replay, good evening. I'm Minister Donna. If you are thinking about, starting a nonprofit, I encourage you to please reach out to Jill Morris. She's an expert. She has a heart of gold, and she will definitely walk you through it, help you, take her courses, just support her. Because she knows what she's doing. And, that's the best thing, when you can connect with someone who knows what they are doing and doing it correctly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I do want to I want to just mention something here about, there's 3 types of nonprofits. I want to just mention really quickly, if I can. All right.
Yes.
So, because I know for your audience, this is probably a concern. So there are many types of nonprofits. The tax code can go anywhere from 501c to 501c all the way like to 29, 501c3 to 29. So, but there are 3 that I want to talk about here really quickly. Public charitable nonprofits. Those are usually your community-based types of nonprofits. The type of nonprofit you want to get grants for. That's one type of nonprofit. The second type is a private foundation. Private foundations are grantors. So a private foundation, you'll hear like your high profilers or your celebrities who will start a private foundation. They got a lot of money. They're taking advantage of the tax breaks. That's basically what it is. They're doing good for the community, but the main goal is for them to protect their wealth. And so they will start a nonprofit, a private foundation, and they will grant charitable nonprofits money. So that's another part. The third type of nonprofit I want to mention here also is your religious nonprofits, like a church. So I get this question a lot.
Yeah, I was going to bring it up too.
501c3. This is just my personal advice. My personal advice. Your nonprofit, the IRS says that churches, although you're a nonprofit, you don't have to be a 501c3 because you're already tax exempt. You already have a tax exemption. So, but a lot of churches get that 501c3 tax exempt status. Just be aware that once you get that 501c3 tax exempt status, you are now under a democracy, not a theocracy. So whatever the federal government says, whatever the government says, you got to abide by it, which is the reason why a lot of churches are mute on things that they should be talking about. So you really want to be careful if you're a church and you getting that 501c3 tax exempt status. I would suggest that you form another community-based nonprofit on the side if you want to do stuff in the community and make that a 501c3. But as far as the church, I would not get that tax exempt status. I wouldn't. That's just me. I wouldn't. So let me give you a really quick example. So in the federal government, my program that I managed was called the Healthy Families Initiative. We did healthy marriage. I had nonprofits, 60 nonprofits under me that I monitored. They did healthy marriage education. Well, when the laws start coming out of same-sex marriage, if you got our grant, and there were many churches that did, if a same-sex couple came and took your marriage education class, you had to serve them, whether you believe it spiritually or not. So because you are under a democracy, because you got the grant, because you got so you got to be, a lot of churches, they want the benefits from the government, but they're sacrificing their beliefs. So you got to be very, very careful of, when you already tax exempt because you're a religious organization. So just be really conscious and careful when you make those decisions. If so I would suggest that you do a community nonprofit on the side. That's a community-based nonprofit on the side. Say if you want like a STEM program, for your church or whatever type of community services, I would do a separate one on the side. But the church, make it a nonprofit, but I'm not an attorney. So that's just what I would do.
That is some good. Now that's a double golden nugget right there. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
So if you get in the grant, you gotta, whether you believe it or not, like with the same-sex marriage, you're 501c3, so you gotta go to what the government says. That is that is interesting.
Which is the reason why, like, when all this Black Lives Matter, and all of these, killings and all that, we would love to have, one of these mega preachers come out and pray for us, but they can't.
Wow.
They muted. They ain't sacrificing their big, money that they got for their edifices, their buildings and their land and all of this mega buildings. They ain't sacrificing that for the greater good of the people.
Wow. Yeah, and you wonder why they stay silent. Now we know.
Yeah, they are literally silenced.
Wow.
They are controlled.
Wow. So you have to be careful and
you got to be
money
careful.
For bail. Basically. Yeah. Wow, you have definitely dropped some nuggets on tonight, and I hope that everyone took great notes. Always watch the replay because Jill was excellent. I mean, it was
Aw,
so
thank you.
much in here. So Jill, can you tell the viewers how to reach you on all your social media platforms?
Yes. On Facebook, The Savvy Servant. On Instagram, The Savvy Servant. On YouTube, The Savvy Servant. My email, Jill at thesavvyservant.com. And what else? Instagram, YouTube, my website, www.thesavvyservant.com.
Thank you so much. Jill, do
You're
you have
welcome.
any closing remarks for anyone?
Just I got the notification. I feel so bad, but I got the notification that my battery is dying. I got 20% left. But I do want to say this. I do want to say now is the time. You know, forget all of that, trying to figure out if you should do it, if you should serve. It is the time. It is the time. You got more than enough prophecies. You got more than enough experience. You at your place of maturity. It's just time to serve from it. I heard something years ago from Bill Winston. He said, if you think God is telling you to make a move, do it. And if for whatever reason it's the wrong move, let his grace catch you.
Wow, that's powerful. That's very powerful. Did y'all hear that? Now is the time. No more excuses. Now is the time.
Because the longer you wait, people are dying. People are dying of heartbreak and heartache. And they're just waiting for somebody to drop a word to them.
That's true.
To
Thank
serve.
you so much. Thank you so much, Jill. Thank you for being on Wanda's Warriors Live. I pray that everyone, will take heed to what she has said. Looking forward to seeing so many businesses being birthed. Also remember, this is the 8th month, which is new beginnings. So we're looking to say more congratulations to business owners this year. And so thank you again. Thank you all for watching. Please like and share this video with someone that it can be a blessing to. And go to my website, which is wandabriscoe.org. Join the mailing list because a newsletter comes out every week that will let you know who the guests will be on my upcoming show. And the newsletter also states where I'll be speaking to, what I'll be speaking at. I have a lot of radio shows, interviews that's coming up, and some out-of-state appearances, and an upcoming virtual book signing. So go to my website, get the information, and continue to support Wanda's Warriors Live. And always remember my motto, people, and that is to live out loud. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Have a blessed night. Stay safe and healthy. And until next time, I love you all. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.